my protection.
Protection from what?
Koryuken.
We're gonna be in the new world in no time. This is exhilarating. Get excited.
So, if there's something to say about Mr. Nightmare, a lot of people who are fans of ours really are just dedicated and say they want us to react to everything that he does. Like, I'm more than happy to. It's just a lot of times we don't have time because it's just there's a lot for us to react to. And if I'm able to, with like, if not Nick, then maybe Drew, maybe Chad, maybe Rick. It all depends. It really all depends on how things go.
The stories are cool. I just feel bad when we react to stuff like this because I like to be as transformative as possible with reactions.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you just get kind of sucked in and you're just sitting there listening for a while with stuff like this and you're not really adding anything to the video.
Yeah.
And so I love watching these. It's challenging to react to them and do it well, in my opinion. Does that make sense to you guys? Hopefully
Yeah,
it does.
well, I feel with these, whenever each story happens, we tend to add quite a bit in between. I mean, that's how I feel, at least. I mean, that's what I see from everything that I've witnessed, like from our reactions. You know, because
we'll usually pause between stories and talk about our opinions on them, but I just feel bad like going for as long as they go sometimes with us not saying anything or adding anything, you know?
Yeah, in which, you know, if it ever gets to that point where because if we add like an extra 50% on top of what the video is, you know, like this video is 25 minutes. Say we make the video 37 minutes or 40 minutes long. I feel like we do enough to be transformative enough as a reaction to where that it merits that be. But if we do a reaction to this and it's only like 27 minutes or 28 minutes, you know, and we only add like 2 or 3 minutes onto it, then it's like it's not really a reaction at that point. And I'm like, I don't feel right 100% of the time releasing them in that state. But yeah, I guess we'll see. But this is one that I've, you know, school lockdowns are a thing that are really prominent here in the States. And we all know why. Don't think we need to go over the reason as to why. Because giving any sort of credence or any sort of like acknowledgement of what those monsters do. I mean, look, I'm not gonna sit here and like everyone remembers Columbine. Like, I do. I remember exactly where I was when I heard about it. I remember, like, I was sitting in school when I was told about it. And it shocked me. It shocked me to my core. And I was just like, how could anyone ever do that? And from then on out, it was just like any threat at school in that regard was taken seriously no matter what. And it was, and it still is to a certain extent. But
so we had to do drills like in school for like what you would do if there was ever a situation like that.
Yeah.
And I remember all throughout school during those drills, I was like, this isn't going to stop anybody with a gun.
No.
Like,
if they wanted to, they could get in here and do whatever they wanted.
These doors have freaking glass windows. They could just shoot the glass out and aim through and keep shooting. Like,
there is one.
I always remember thinking, I was like, dude, if anybody ever is actively shooting in the school, I'm going out the freaking window and like leaving school grounds as quickly as I can.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck if the teachers are going to trap me in a little room and I just wait to be shot.
There's one foolproof one that I've seen that has done a lot to like show me that, yeah, some lockdown stuff. Let's see, there was one, it's let's see. Yeah. The door jam device that they have for the bottom of it right here. This right here is the most foolproof one that I've seen. This one, basically, this can withstand. They actually showed it withstood like shotgun blasts and it took over 200 hits with a sledgehammer to like knock the thing loose, and that's pretty good. And
it's also all well and good if they don't bring like actual explosives or something too, though.
Yeah.
And also if the doors like were all in my high school that, you know, had freaking windows on them. So
Yeah, there's that too, which I don't want a school to feel like a prison. So I think taking windows out would not be the ideal thing. Once again, man, and a lot of people say, well, just eliminate guns. That'll solve the problem. No, it won't.
Oh.
It won't.
It works in countries that don't border on countries that have giant cartels that will still be giving guns to criminals.
Yes, and not only that, but the amount of guns that exist out there, it doesn't matter if there's a gun buyback or whatever, it's just like, it's not going to solve the problem. And I think that the biggest thing that we need to do is just prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And I know that sounds pretty morbid, but in all honesty, I can't think of anything else to do, because you can't stop bad people from doing bad things preemptively. It's not like we have a pre-crime thing like from Minority Report that they can just see this shit coming. And I mean, I just hate when it does happen. When it does, it hurts me, because, you know, no one deserves to die early like that. Especially kids, man. Sandy Hook for me is the worst one, because that, when I saw like the layout of like how the shooter went in and like everything that he did to like ensure that everyone, like when they piled into that bathroom, dude, I can only imagine like what it looked like, and I don't want to. But anyway, these are 5 disturbing true school lockdown stories by Mr. Nightmare. Let's go ahead and check it out. Here we go.
Immediately go to the nearest room and lock and barricade the door. Stay low and stay quiet.
I went to a somewhat typical high school. Not in a traditional American suburb, but a more rural set high school. Some kids go to schools with graduating classes of like 500 to hell, even 1,000 kids. My high school had, I think, a little less than 200 kids in my graduating class. It was the kind of high school where even if you weren't friends with someone, you still knew them by face and name. Walking down the hallways, you'd know basically 99% of your peers, at least in your own graduating class. Coming from a quiet town, there weren't a lot of crazy news stories, really.
This is
it was
AI
pretty
generated.
uneventful there.
This is an AI-generated image, you can tell, because that's chickens.
It's like that in the previous video that you did.
And the clock has more than 12 numbers on it.
What we did for fun after school was actually go out and play sports and ride our bikes around and stuff like that. This was like 17 years ago though, so I guess things may be a lot different these days for kids. Another thing I always felt that was unique about our school was that there didn't really seem to be any bullying for the most part. Like, at least not the typical cliche movie style bullying where kids are getting pushed into lockers or having their lunch money stolen. When I think back now, I can't really name a single kid from my graduating class who could be labeled as a bully. Sure, there were kids who just tease others, but nothing too serious. Of course, there were quiet kids in our grade, like every school has. But there was one kid in my grade who literally never spoke at all. I'm gonna just name him Luke for this story. He wasn't even a weird-looking kid or anything. He seemed pretty nice to people who went out of their way to interact with him. I shared one class with him though. It was an elective that had kids from all 4 grades in it. Luke and I were juniors when this happened. This elective was a computer class, and back when this happened, the computer rooms in our high school were still rocking those big bulky box computers. I remember the layout of this classroom. There was the aisle in the middle separating 2 columns of tables, and the 2 columns had 4 rows each. Each row had 4 seats, and each student had their own computer. This class wasn't full, so there were probably like 26 filled seats out of 32. Luke always sat in the second row in the furthest seat to the left with no one next to him, as everyone else sat with people they knew from their respective grades. Unfortunately, not long into the semester, the seniors in the class started collectively picking on Luke. By this, I mean some of the seniors would make jokes about how quiet Luke was, that it was scary when the teacher would ask certain things. For whatever reason, our teacher never stood up for Luke and told them to cut it out. The teacher was a bit of a pushover from what I remember. Maybe that was why. As the semester went on, it got a little worse. I remember at one point seeing a small piece of paper fly from the back row from the seniors right to the back of Luke's head. I remember he turned around and had this very telling look. The seniors continued to make fun, one of them saying, "Wasn't me," and blaming one of the other seniors. The look on Luke's face just looked like a mix of sadness, anger, and just defeatedness. I genuinely felt bad, but I didn't get involved. Eventually, one day I saw Luke sitting on a curb not far from the high school after school ended one day. I passed by him as I was walking to my car. I have an early birthday, so I was driving around halfway through junior year. Given we were in a quiet area, no one was exactly walking distance from school. So I did the right thing and said what's up, and asked if he needed a ride home. His face literally lit up a bit as he said yes. We walked to my car, and from there on, he guided me to his house. It was about a 10-minute drive to his house. We talked a lot during that car ride. I told him he should just ignore the seniors in our computer class. I said they're a bunch of deadbeats anyway. He said they're not the only ones that he's sick of. He implied that he deals with people picking on him in multiple classes, which honestly made me feel pretty terrible for him. In those 10 minutes, I felt like I learned a lot about Luke and got to know him as a person just a bit, and he seemed like a decent kid. As I dropped him off, I made a comment to him about how close we lived, and then we said goodbye. Every day in class after that, we'd say hey to each other, but admittedly, I unfortunately never got involved whenever he got picked on. Well, one day, Luke didn't show up to class. Computer class was 4th period. It wasn't until 7th period English that an announcement came over the loudspeaker saying, "Lockdown, this is not a drill." I remember everyone looking around nervously, and I remember our teacher looking the most nervous. She ran to turn off the lights and told everyone to hurry to one corner of the room. Seeing how nervous our teacher was only made all the students even more nervous. We sat with the lights off for a long time. It had to be 20 to 30 minutes until there was another message on the loudspeaker. It was the principal, explaining that there was someone in a mask carrying a black duffel bag trying to get into the school. Our school had really good security, and when someone spotted that person approaching the school with what could only be assumed to be guns or any kind of weapons in that duffel bag, the doors were all locked. The school day was cut short after that once a few police cars were on the scene. I remember it being a Friday, so I took a few of my friends home to my house so we could hang out. I'd be lying if I said I remember the small details thereafter of that day, but I think it was that same night that I woke up in the middle of the night to light tapping at my window.
Oh shit.
And I could see someone on the other side of the glass. I started freaking out, and before running to get my dad, I took a closer look and then said, "Who is it?" I heard Luke's voice as he said his name. I felt like my heart dropped a second time. I went over to the window and lifted it just a crack. I said, "What are you doing? How did you find me?" And he said through the window, "I tried to do something bad." And it instantly clicked. I mean it. It instantly clicked in my head that it was him. Before he could even tell me, I said, "Was it you who caused the lockdown?" And he said yes. I was scared to ask him what he was planning on doing. Instead, I asked him how he found me. He admitted to remembering the deli that I said I lived by, and he eventually found my car after biking around the area. That explanation didn't make it any less disturbing. Luke asked me if he could come in and talk about what he planned on doing, and I said no, I cannot let him in, nor can I hear what he planned on doing. I actually recommended he go to the school and confess to whatever he was going to do, and when he refused to walk away from my window, I said "Dad" really loudly, which worked in scaring him off. I went to my parents' room and woke them up to tell them.
Holy crap.
My mom was the one who insisted on calling the police. She was distraught. When a police officer eventually came, I had no choice but to tell the truth. I gave Luke's identity, and I explained that he had just come to my window, admitting to potentially almost doing something horrible at the school. Obviously, the police were already aware of the lockdown, so I believe police were sent to his house that night. But after speaking with Luke's parents, they realized Luke wasn't there. I believe it was the next day that Luke was either found or he just returned home and police were still waiting there, and he confessed to what he told me. As far as our graduating class knew, Luke was charged with something like making a terroristic threat. I know he did time, and I know he's been out a long time, To be honest, I don't really know if he's still around. Part of me always wanted to feel bad for Luke, witnessing how loneliness and getting picked on can probably eat away at someone. He followed me and came to me simply because I showed him an act of kindness, something I unfortunately believe nobody else showed him. Still, the fact that he admitted to bringing a gun to school with a mask on, even if he didn't admit to intending on carrying out the implied threat, I can't fully believe he simply came to the school with a gun just to scare people. I think he for a split second had a horrible plan and got cold feet and regretted it. I just hope Luke eventually got the help he needed.
Damn, dude. Whew. I'll be honest, man. I've encountered I've encountered people who have discussed like doing bad things. There was one kid, not gonna give his name, but he actually drew in his notebook like his plan for ending everybody in the school, and like how he planned to do it. That included like stealing a school bus, taking a bunch of the seats out the back of it, and like ramming it into the school, and like
Jesus.
Yeah, and I was like, dude, don't talk about stuff like that, man. That's not cool. And he was like, I just thought about it, and I may do it. I don't know. And I was like, don't, man, don't do that. And then he never acted out on it, which, jeez.
I'm very glad I never got any of my notebooks or anything confiscated in school, because I never drew any plans to do anything to anybody or anything, but me and my friends like to draw guns and weapons and stuff.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And, like, I probably would have gotten in big trouble if they ever saw my notebooks. They would have thought I was like, you're going to shoot up the school. I was like, no, I just like the way guns look. They're cool. Like,
yeah, for me, I actually got in trouble for, you know Gundam models, right? I probably told you this. There was a Gundam model that I was working on. It was the Wing Zero one.
Have a little gun with it.
Yeah, it had the little gun with it, and I was
so stupid.
And I was working on it, and then I was working on it and putting it together in like my spare time, like because I had a free period, and I was at a lunch table, and teacher came by. He's like, "What is that?" I was like, "It's my a model kit I'm putting." Like, no, what is that? And then she picked it up. It was the Buster rifle, and she was just like, "We're going to go to the principal's office over this." I was like, "What?"
God damn it.
And then they asked me to pack my stuff up, went to the principal's office.
I
my mom
fully am
came up.
I'm all for taking threats seriously, but they go way too far with some of the stuff.
Here's the thing. They called my mom, and I don't know what they told my mom, but my mom showed up, came in there, and confronted me and everything, and she was just like, "What did you bring to school?" I was like, "I brought my model kit to school, and I was working on it in my free period in the lunchroom," and they found me there, and they saw, and my mom asked, "Can I see what you took from?" And keep in mind, it was like this long. It was about this long and about that thick, and it had a little handle on it and all that. And my mom literally
look at that one. Like, that one has a big gun for a Gundam, so smaller than that.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
It's so absurd.
And I think I still have it out there. It's that Wing Zero kit that I still have out there.
Yeah.
But my mom literally looked at the principal and said, "Are you kidding me? This?" And then he tried to be like, "We take all threats at this school very seriously."
This is not a threat.
And my mom literally was just like, it's like, "You are kidding me with this. This is a toy. This isn't even a toy. It doesn't even make any noise. It doesn't have any moving parts or anything. What are you talking about?" And then he basically just like, "Well, she brought it to us. We didn't know what to do about it, so we called you." And she's like, "And you're wasting my son's time, and you're wasting my time making me come up here. This is ridiculous." And she basically talked to the school superintendent, and the superintendent talked to the principal, and the principal basically just was told that, nothing was going to be done. And not only that, but that teacher that pulled me out of my free period and everything, basically they got written up. And
Nice.
And that teacher was a jerk, by the way. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, like I said, I'm all for taking threats seriously, but
I
you
am
know
too.
the difference between a threat and something that's non-threatening, you know?
I was literally sitting there building a model Gundam kit. That's it. It was a model Gundam kit, and that
Like
was
the
that.
place, the reason that I wouldn't have ever brought a model kit to school is because I used X-Acto knives to cut my pieces out, so I know better than bringing an X-Acto knife to school.
I never used that. Mine was always like the snap out. It was my early days of building. Like I had the little snap out pieces and just like put them together. That was all it was.
It's like I would have only built it if I had nippers, but I probably still wouldn't have because I would use the X-Acto knife to trim off the nubs from where you nip them at.
Yeah. But
yeah, like it's absurd. Like I got in trouble a couple times for some stupid stuff too that was like not a threat. That they're like, this could be a threat, and like my mom was just like, no, and the other teachers were like, no, that's absurd, you know. So.
Story 2.
It's like I got in trouble in elementary school for just pew pew, like playing cowboys, basically type thing, basically on the playground. It's like, shut up.
Good Lord.
This happened in 2016, back when I was in 5th grade. If you remember that year, you probably remember all the killer clown sightings that were happening around the country.
From outer space?
Hello there, everyone. I'm Fucko the Clown. I'm gonna wreck your day.
At the time, it was all over the news and social media. Most adults thought it was just some dumb trend or prank, but for young kids, it was actually pretty scary. It was a normal day at school. I went to an elementary school in a quiet suburban area where I still live. Nothing weird ever really happens here. It was around 1 p.m. I'm guessing, because it was closer to the end of the school day. We were in class working on some random assignment, and the classroom was quiet except for a few people whispering. Then, one of the students in my class suddenly said out loud, "There's a clown outside." I still remember her high-pitched voice as she said it. Some of us stood up and looked toward the window, and yeah, there really was a clown outside. He was standing just a few feet away from the window, facing our classroom directly. He was wearing a baggy, dirty red and yellow clown suit and had white face paint with black around the eyes. He was smiling and staring in at us with this big fake grin. After a few seconds, he started waving slowly. Some of the kids thought it was funny and laughed. Others were clearly freaked out. Our teacher, Mrs. Riker, walked over to the window, looked at the guy for a second, and then said through the glass, loud and annoyed, "Excuse me, classes are in session. You need to get out of here." The clown didn't react at all. He just kept standing there, smiling and waving. Mrs. Riker told us all to sit back down and said she was calling the front office. She picked up the corded classroom phone and then walked into the hallway with it and spoke quietly. The phones in the classrooms were always next to the door, so that's how she was able to walk outside the room with it. She came back in moments later and then hung up. She walked over to the window and shut all the blinds after she saw that the man in the clown costume was still there, doing the same creepy waving motion, smiling, and general clownish mannerisms. Not even 2 minutes later, the principal's voice came over the loudspeaker. "Staff, please get your classrooms into lockdown formation." There was a sense of urgency in the voice that, looking back, was probably to alert the teachers that it wasn't a drill without causing all the kids to go into a panic. That's when it got serious. Mrs. Riker rushed to turn off the lights and told us all to get under our desks. She pulled the door shut and locked it. Everyone was quiet. Some kids were giggling, but others looked scared. I was definitely scared.
Yeah, see, that
We
again,
stayed
that's
like that
terrifying
for
to me, and I would not feel safe because if that dude did have a gun, he could easily just come through the windows.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like forever,
It's like
but
they
it was
should
actually
have moved those kids in particular out of that room somewhere else, away from the windows, you know?
Yeah.
about 30 minutes. Nobody knew what was happening, but eventually, the principal came back on the loudspeaker and said the lockdown was over and that the situation had been handled. Apparently, school security had confirmed that the clown was gone. They didn't tell us anything else. Classes went on like normal for the rest of the day. It felt weird. Everyone was talking about it during dismissal, but the teachers didn't say much. Then, after school, I was walking home with my friend Chris. We lived in the same neighborhood, just a few blocks away. While we were walking, a couple of 5th grade girls behind us suddenly ran past us, looking panicked. One of them said, "There's someone in the woods." We
Do you hear that, Sid? There's a man in the woods. You remember that one? That's probably before your time. Then's oof.
stopped and turned around.
That we reacted to that one a long time ago. It was before your time.
I thought you were saying I'm too young for that or something. I'm like,
Oh,
"Dude,
no,
I'm
no,
only
no.
like a year younger than you."
No, that was a popular short back when we started. It basically tells a story about this kid named Sid, who basically makes up a story about a man in the woods to like make the kids run away from the honeysuckle at the bottom of the hill near the forest because he wanted all the honeysuckle to himself, and eventually it resulted in something bad happening, and then yeah, it's really good. I don't want to give it away for anyone who hasn't seen it, but it's really good.
Behind the school, there's a small patch of trees. It's not deep woods or anything, just enough to separate the school from the street behind it. And standing just barely out of view, near the edge of the woods, was the clown again. Same dirty outfit, same painted face. He was half hidden by the trees, but he was clearly waving, and he wasn't just waving at random. He was doing it slowly, directly at the girls who had just passed us, like he was trying to call them over. Chris and I didn't say anything. We just ran. I don't know what happened after that, but I told my parents as soon as I got home. They called the school, and later I heard from another kid that the police were called again and patrolled the area, but they never found anyone. To this day, nobody knows who that guy was, and I don't know if he was just trying to scare some kids or if he were planning something worse.
Or if he was a cosmic
But what
horror
freaks me
from
out the
outer
most
space.
is
Yeah, there's a possibility too.
that he came back after the lockdown, and he waited, hidden in the trees, watching kids go home.
Yeah, it's creepy as fuck.
Very.
Like, just being a creepy clown on a like public street, like freaking out random people's one thing, but stay away from kids in schools, man. Like,
Yeah.
it's not funny at that point.
Yeah, I basically dressed up as like a Bubba like character for this Halloween thing that we did for my sister, and I was standing there at the edge of the thing, and I was like acting like a statue, and then a kid walked up to me, and he pushed against my belly, and I literally went like, "What are you doing?" and if a kid ever got too scared, I'd like take my mask off and be like, hey, it's okay, kid, it ain't nothing. Hey, you want to take a picture? Here, I'll let you hold my knife.
Yeah, just don't go to freaking schools. Like,
No,
trying to creep out kids.
that's
Like, what
I
I'm
only
saying.
scare in like designated
off
times
school
and
property.
places. No,
That's appropriate.
yeah, that's an appropriate time at a school.
Or even in a school window is inappropriate behavior.
Oh yeah,
You need to be on a list.
yeah, exactly. Now say say it was Halloween and you had a haunted house attraction at your house and you were standing out there as like the kids got home and you were like, hello. Then that would be appropriate because that's on your property and you're not threatening them in any
As long as
way.
you're not trying to beckon them onto your property or
Heck
anything.
no, and I don't know, man. Honestly, when it comes to like that stuff, sometimes those clowns take it too far.
That one definitely did.
Oh, absolutely.
So this happened not long ago. I live on the outskirts of Philadelphia, where it's me, my son, and my stepdaughter. I say stepdaughter as I've taken my best...
Hey, you know what they say? It's always sunny in Philadelphia.
Nobody says that, though.
I know. No one. Absolutely nobody.
friend's daughter in legally. Around 2016, my best friend Joanne was murdered by her husband. He ended up making national headlines and was convicted of 5 more murder cases. He's facing 3 consecutive life sentences with no parole. Now I'm a middle school teacher at my son's school. He's the year below what I teach. My stepdaughter is the grade above what I teach, so their classrooms are not far off from mine. This incident took place on March 30th, 2020, when the lockdowns were slowly taking place. Where I taught, the school was rather distant from anywhere. The next school was about 10 miles, the gas station was about 2 miles, and the nearest park was about 600 meters from where we were. So we were one of the last schools to go into lockdown. Around midday of March, it was a normal heated Monday. I was teaching math at that time for the 6th graders. All of a sudden, I get a notification on my phone that someone was here to pick up my stepdaughter. The system that works is the main emergency number gets a notification if someone is picking up your child. The thing is, my stepdaughter was 3 classes down from me. She had no appointments, no close family that lived in a good radius from us. I replied that I'm here at school and no one in a 10-mile radius is picking her up. This was sending alarm bells off left and right. They said that the person picking her up was her biological dad. The school doesn't have that type of information on file. A few minutes go by on the phone and it's dead silent. The lady tells me she's gonna call the principal and see what he wants to do from there. A gut feeling didn't sit right with me. I called my stepdaughter's classroom and asked for her to be sent to my room. Just as I hung up, I was back to teaching when my stepdaughter came into the classroom. Not even 10 minutes later, the lockdown siren went off. I had kids push desks to the door and barricade the windows, and everyone sat in the corner. I had a pretty good feeling on who this lockdown was about. We were in a lockdown for about 46 minutes at this point. My main concern was how did he end up getting out? About 2 hours later, the lockdown was lifted and I was escorted out by the police. I was further questioned on how I knew this man due to the CPS records. I said I took my best friend's daughter in and explained the whole story. The police informed me that how he had gotten out was a prison bus transporting inmates to another cell, but a car came swerving in and crashed into the prison bus, leaving 10 prisoners dead on the scene, 2 prison guards knocked out, and 20 escaped. There were police already at our house waiting for the dad to show up, but he never did. When they heard the lockdown at the school, they knew it was one of the prisoners. If they had never gotten there on time, I honestly have no idea what would have happened.
Damn.
Sheesh. That was a short one, but a terrifying one.
Yeah.
Dude, that's messed up. Damn.
It's definitely a scary situation.
Very.
This happened during my
I'm
freshman
glad they
year of
had
high
checks and balances in place there to make sure that he didn't just get called to the office where he could have snatched her or something.
Exactly, and that would have been even worse because if he'd have gotten away and she'd never be seen again, that'd be the worst.
School. I'm 21 now and I still think about it all the time. I went to a public school in a pretty average suburban town. We did lockdown drills maybe once every couple months, so when this one started, that's exactly what I thought it was, just a drill. It was a Wednesday, 4th period. I remember because it was earth science and we had just finished a pop quiz. I was putting my stuff into my backpack when the loudspeaker came on and said, "This is a lockdown. Lock all doors, lights off, stay quiet." At first, nobody panicked. Our teacher, Mrs. Chen, sighed, got up, and locked the door like usual. She turned off the lights and told us all to get into the corner of the room, away from the door. Everyone was laughing a little and whispering like it was no big deal. But then we heard a second announcement. Same voice, but it sounded different, more rushed. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." That's when the room went silent. My teacher didn't say a word. She just motioned for everyone to stay down and keep quiet. I could tell even she was nervous now. She kept checking her phone, and we could hear faint, distant police sirens outside. A few minutes passed, then we heard something from the hallway. Footsteps. Slow ones, and not in a hurry like a cop or a teacher, just one person walking. They stopped right in front of our classroom. We were all staring at the door. Nobody breathed. Then came a knock. Not loud,
no.
just a soft, slow knock, 3 times. Nobody moved. Then the doorknob turned. They tried to open it, but it was locked, obviously, but they kept trying. Not aggressively, just turning the handle back and forth like they were checking. And then, a male's voice on the other side said, This is just a drill. You can open the door now. We all collectively looked at Mrs. Chen, and then she looked back at all of us, put her finger up to her lips, and shook her head no. The person on the other side of the door kept knocking and trying the doorknob, and eventually the knocks got more aggressive as the voice of the man on the other side kept saying hello. Our classroom was on the first floor in the science wing. I can't tell you how much I was shaking in my shoes. I know even if all the other kids didn't want to admit it, they were as well. Eventually, the knock stopped, and the man must have walked away. We heard nothing after that for a solid 5 minutes. Total silence, apart from the police sirens outside getting louder.
Oh, that's a nightmare.
It felt like forever.
That is. That's one of the biggest fears I think a lot of kids have whenever they're in school, something like that happening, someone coming in and there's nothing you can do to stop them.
Worrying and hoping that everybody in your classroom and the teacher included are smart enough not to fall for that shit too.
Yeah, don't. It's just a drill.
Don't be fucking stupid.
It's just a drill. You can open up now.
Also, it would make me worry. It's like they made a second announcement being like, this is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. It's like, I hope somebody else didn't open the door before you guys.
Because imagine them saying it's just a drill and that second one hadn't come over.
Mm-hmm.
She probably would have had second thoughts about opening it.
Yep.
Man.
Then someone down the hall screamed. It was a girl. Just one scream and then nothing. A couple of people in my class started crying quietly. Honestly, it was the girls. Someone whispered that they saw a shadow move past the little glass window on the classroom door on several occasions. Each time anyone spoke, even quietly, Mrs. Chen gave a stern but quiet shh. Another 5 or 10 minutes passed. Then, finally, we heard the sound of police officers shouting from down the hallway, telling everyone to stay in place. They were going room to room, and when they finally knocked on our door and unlocked it with a key, Mrs. Chen didn't even move until they showed their badges. We were all escorted out in a line, past other classes doing the same thing. There were cop cars everywhere outside, even a SWAT van. I didn't see anything too crazy, but I did see one officer leading a guy in cuffs out of the building. He looked about 30. Not a student, pale, long hair, wearing dark clothes. Later that day, we found out that some criminal had slipped into the school through one of the side doors during a delivery. That side door was right by the end of the science wing. Apparently, he was mentally unstable and had something in his backpack, but I don't know if it was a weapon or not. They didn't tell us much. They just said nobody was hurt and everything was under control. But I swear, I'll never forget that knock at the door. The way he turned the handle, the scream down the hall. It didn't feel like everything was under control at all.
Yeah. Hopefully the scream was just somebody that was caught out in the hallway and saw him and got out of the hallway real quick.
Yeah.
Somewhere safe.
I would hope.
It didn't sound like anything else bad happened. They probably would have heard about it if so.
Oh, yeah.
I had just started school, and I already had a lockdown to tell. I'm only 15 years old and just started as a sophomore at Northside High School in Jacksonville, North Carolina. That morning, I came to school early, around 6:55 a.m. I was one of the first people in my first period class, which was chorus. Our classroom is at the very end of the fine arts hallway, right next to the auditorium. I was sitting at my seat with my phone out, listening to music and just waiting for the bell to ring and start the day. After a few minutes, I heard my teacher say something, so I paused my music and took out my headphones. When I looked up, I saw my classmates heading into the closet at the back of the choir room. I was confused. We had just practiced a lockdown drill the day before, so I wasn't sure if this was another drill or something else. Still, I listened to what the teacher was saying and followed everyone else into the closet. The teacher shut the door behind us and turned off the lights. We were now sitting in complete darkness, with only a small amount of light coming in from under the door. At this point, I still didn't know what was happening, but then I heard police sirens outside. That's when I started to realize this wasn't a drill. It was real. I started to feel nervous, but I kept calm. I figured if I stayed as composed as I could, maybe I wouldn't panic as much. I sat in that closet quietly, trying to listen for any sounds coming from outside, but I didn't hear anything else. We stayed in that closet with the lights off until the lockdown ended around 8:45 a.m. That's nearly 2 hours. Once we were let out, I felt calm again because everyone around me had stayed calm too. I went back to my seat in the front of the room and put my music back on, just trying to get back to normal. Later on, I decided to ask my teacher what had happened. I said, "Were there any fights today?" The teacher looked at me seriously and said, "It's much worse." That's when I started to realize something serious had really gone down. I looked out the window and saw cars lined up in the back of the school. At first, I thought it was just regular pickup traffic, but it felt different. In the classroom, some students were trying to get information. Eventually, my friend Jacob told me that someone had been stabbed in the middle of the school, in the rotunda. I didn't know much more than that at the time, but shortly after, my mom texted me asking if I was okay. I told her I was safe and still in my choir class. Some girls in the class had started crying after the lockdown, and that made everything feel even more real. My mom called me next. She told me she had parked her car at the baseball field, along with a bunch of other worried parents trying to find their kids. Eventually, my name was called and I was allowed to leave the school. When I got to the field, I found my mom. She was clearly shaken up, and honestly, so was I. She drove me to the daycare where she worked, and once we got there, both of us went into a quiet room where we cried together. Her co-workers came in to try and comfort us, and I had to go outside to calm down even more. I put my headphones back in and listened to 3 Days Grace just to get my head right again. Later on, we found out exactly what happened. 2 students had been taken to the hospital. One of them died. A teacher had also been slashed by the attacker. In total, 3 people had been hurt that day. I started searching for more information and found the press conference about the incident already posted online. After watching it, my mom took me to Arby's to get something to eat. I hadn't eaten all day. We got our food, then we went to pick up my younger brother from his middle school. He told us he had noticed a lot of cops at the school, but didn't know what had happened. When we got home, I kept searching online for updates. That's when I saw that a 16-year-old had already been charged with voluntary manslaughter, assault with a deadly weapon, and a list of other serious charges. 2 more students, one 15 and one 16, were also charged with assault and disorderly conduct. What made it even more disturbing was that someone had recorded the stabbing and posted the video on Snapchat. I didn't watch the video myself, but my mom told me about it. She said in the video, the person recording was running, so the phone was pointed at the ground, but you could clearly hear the screams of kids as the stabbing happened. My mom thinks the whole thing might have been gang-related, and after I heard that, I was scared. Scared that someone might come back to retaliate. Another attack, more violence. It's hard to believe that someone actually died. I didn't even know the kid, but I've been thinking about him ever since. I hope he rests in peace.
That one was a weirdly formatted story, I feel like.
Yeah.
Still, that sucks.
Yeah, it does. So, my entire school career, we never had we never lost anybody. None of the from all the kids I knew from like kindergarten all the way up until I was in high school, we never lost anybody. We never lost anybody before graduating high school. Because, usually you have, the, in loving memory of, for students in your class that didn't make it or that passed away or anything like that. We didn't have that. And like every year before and every year after, I remember at least one. There was at least one that had passed away. But thankfully, we never had that. And I just remember a bunch of stuff happening after. And there was actually one bad thing that happened like a couple years after I left high school. There was actually a really bad situation where 3 football players were found out they'd drugged this girl and they did a bunch of bad stuff with her. And all 3 of them not only got kicked off the football team, expelled from school, and were brought up on criminal charges, but all 3 of them did serious time in juvie and the juvenile detention center. And yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
And I'm just glad that justice was served for those jerks.
Like I've told you about before, you can look it up online if you want, but Sullivan Central High, Officer Gudger, she was the, whatchamacallit?
Resource officer.
Resource officer there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody came in a couple of years after I graduated from high school, and they had a lockdown situation, and she confronted him in the hall and ended up having to shoot him because he had a gun. But she stopped him from hurting anybody, so
That's good.
she's considered a local hero for that.
As she should be.
Mm-hmm.
She did it. She did her job, and that's awesome. I'm glad that I'm sad that
she was my dream officer when I was in 5th grade too. So taught us all not to do drugs.
Yeah, we had the DARE program in our neck of the woods, and
It was converted from Dare to Dream like right before we got into it. Like they changed it like that year.
I remember the resource officer who came up to do DARE for us whenever I was in like 2nd and 3rd grade, was the officer who pulled me over for my first speeding ticket.
Dope.
And I actually remembered him. I was just like, "Hey, I remember when you were like in my DARE class," and he was just like, "Man, I ain't done that in like 10 years, man. Dang." I'm like, "Yeah." And he was just like, "What are you going so fast for?" I was like, "I'm sorry. I was just trying to get home real fast so I could get home and like get my work done." And he was just like, "Well, tell you what, I ain't gonna write you a ticket, but if I find out, like, here's the thing, you give this to your mom, and she better call this number. If she don't call this number, then I will come to your house and I will give you a ticket." And I was like, "Okay." Mom saw that number. She called it, and she got so mad at me.
Really?
Yeah, that's how I got the reputation of a little bit of a lead foot in my family. Yeah, well, you live and you learn. But yeah,
My mom didn't actually get mad at me for when I got a speeding ticket because it was in college. It's like, I explained to her what happened, and she was like, "Well, yeah, I guess that makes sense," which was that, for one thing, it's a speed trap in the first place because it's an area in Johnson City where on the highway, the speed limit, for basically no reason, drops from 70 to 60.
yeah, that happens. That happens.
And
I hate that.
I had the cruise control set to 70, and it went up to 75, and that's why he wrote me a speeding ticket. Like, it was going down a hill, so it went up to 75, but I was not trying to go that fast, you know?
No. So
I kind of got screwed over with that one.
yeah.
There was nobody else around or anything. It's not like I was really endangering anybody. It's really dumb. It's like 70 on a freeway. Like, come on, man. Like, really?
Yeah, I had just turned 17 when this happened, and I was on my way back from my working my job at Food City, and I went down the interstate, and I pulled up on the Old Coburn Road, went up there pretty fast, and then I went up the back road towards Gibson where I lived, and I was going about 60 in a 45, so no bueno. So they got me for that. So yeah, it happens. But either way, those are some pretty terrifying like school lockdown stories, and I'm sad that, you know, the resulting thing was like one kid had passed away, but at the same time, it's just like you can't really get away from it. Sad to say, it's like, as long as there are bad people out there wanting to do bad things, I mean, unfortunately, people do pass away. But, yeah.
It's good that most of the rest of them worked out, that nobody got hurt. So.
Exactly. But either way, I guess we can move on from here. And I guess if y'all are interested in seeing more from Mr. Nightmare, I mean, there's his channel right up here. So if you want to check that out. Also, if you want to see more from us, here's a subscribe button, like right here, and if you all want to see what we got cooking over on our other channels, we got a little playlist right here for you. It'll probably be a playlist to either Invincible or over to our gaming one where we're playing Curse of Strahd and D&D, and of course there's going to be a random video in front of Nikolai over there, which don't know what it's going to be, but hopefully it'll give you a good one. So till then, I'm Nate. Y'all be good people. Take care. Peace.